I'm going to show you the first three things that I look at whenever I audit a brand new Google Ads account. If you're running Google Ads, you should probably take a look at these settings because if any of them are not set up right, you could be wasting a lot of money. Now, this ad account specifically has over a year worth of data in it. Lately, it's been managed by the Google Ad Rep, the free one that you get from Google. If you know anything about them, they have a common set of quirks that they like to do with Google Ads that ultimately ends up with the account spending more money than it should because that's what Google wants you to do. Anyways, we're going to jump right into it. Because this account was managed by a free Google Ad Rep, the first thing I'm going to check is to see whether or not they've enabled auto apply recommendations. If you don't know what that is, essentially as it sounds, anytime Google comes up with another recommendation, it automatically applies it. You do not want to do this. Oftentimes it ends up having you run experimental features. You'll spend more money than you need to. To check this, you're just going to come over to the left menu, click on campaigns, go to recommendations, and then top right, auto apply settings. This account specifically has all of them turned on. We're going to want to turn them all off because I want to take back control. I only want to do the things and apply the settings that I want. So we're going to turn all these off. Not a shocker. If you are not having a free Google Ads rep manage your account and you have a proper agency, or maybe even you're doing it on your own, probably won't have all of them applied. But of course this one did. So that's step number one. Not important for a lot of people, but still something worth checking. Here's really the first thing that you should look at. We're going to come over to the campaigns, and what I like to do is I want to check what kind of campaigns are running currently, how is the budget distributed between them, and how are each of the campaigns performing. So in this specific case, you'll see that we have one Performance Max and then two search campaigns running with roughly, $3 a day, roughly, in ad spend. So for this specific service business, I don't think Performance Max is what I'd want to be running with this type of budget. If we had more, I'd absolutely want to experiment with it. But I don't think that's a very effective use of the limited budget we have. But let's take a look at performance. Now what I've done is I've just put this timeline to 90 days applied. So we're looking at the last 3 months or so. So relevant recent data, but also enough of it to kind of let patterns mellow out if we're getting anomalies or spikes. So what I'm going to want to look at is just absolute numbers of conversions, 11, 29, 22. So as we're seeing, the Performance Max is the lowest performing from total number of conversions. If we look at click-through rate and conversion rate, we're seeing very similar things. So the search campaigns are running at about a 10% click-through rate, call it like a 8% average conversion rate. So not horrible. Generally, I like to see these at 10, but obviously that depends on so many factors. Sometimes, depending on the company industry budget, lower or higher conversion rates are what you'd actually expect. But we can see here that a 1% click-through rate and a 0.2% conversion rate is extremely low for Performance Max. That is typical. Generally, you're going to see a lot of impressions, some clicks for sure, but very low quality traffic coming from a Performance Max campaign. This specifically is a lead focused business. What I mean by that, the outcome of these ads are to generate leads for the service business. If we had an e-commerce style account, for example, where purchases are the primary goal, then Performance Max, depending on our budget and our specific industry products, could actually be a very good option for us to look at. But in this case, I don't recommend it. So that's first things first. I also will want to look and see how is targeting set up for these campaigns. I'm going to focus on the search campaigns because I will likely just pause this one for now. But first things, I want to look at the settings. Now, Google Ad Reps love to do two big things. First one is the networks. As expected, they're running it on search and display as well. Though this is actually a little misleading, you would assume search network is actually, Google search. It's not. It's other search partners of Google. Low quality traffic, so we do not want that enabled, and display just the same. So that alone, just changing those settings and just having it on Google Search Network. Notice how Google Search Network is what we want, not just the search network. That's what we're going to want. Now that's going to already get more for our budget. We don't need to change budget at all. This is going to be making sure that we're showing these ads to the high quality potential customers that we're actually trying to target. This right here is interesting. It's set to maximize conversions with a target CPA, cost per conversion or cost per action specifically, at $34, but the daily budget is 24. I need to look more into that, specifically about this account, to see if the target CPA is reasonable, if it makes sense. With limited budgets, I've seen instances of having a target CPA above your daily budget and it still actually produces good results. So I can't say anything, I don't want to generalize here. It's very situational, but I will want to look into the historical cost per action there to justify this. I also want to see what the conversion goals are. So it looks like they just have, okay, campaign specific, submit lead form phone calls. Okay, that looks fine. Leads from messages is weird. I have background on this business. I don't think they have this set up in any way, so interesting to see that there. But okay, nothing else stands out too much for right now. This is, again, a quick kind of overview of what I'm looking for. We will get way deeper into analyzing this account. One thing I noticed on this is that they have maximized conversion value. They're also running it on the search and display partners. We don't want that, so we're going to go ahead and change that. But they're running maximized conversion value with a target ROAS of 11%. This is way wrong. With service-based businesses, you can create target ROAS campaigns. You absolutely can. However, what that requires is offline conversion tracking in most cases. Because someone filling out a lead form is not an event that inherently has an associated value with it in most cases. You can't calculate a return on ad spend from somebody filling out a lead form. Normally it's a contact, and then the value of that customer or that transaction comes later. Back and forth conversation, so on. You get a quote, you do all those things. So the only way that you can have a maximized conversion value with a target ROAS in a service-based, lead-based business is if in your CRM, you ultimately are keeping customer profile and things up to date, and you ultimately put in the value of that customer or the quoted amount for that customer after the fact, after you've done the quote, after you've had the conversations, and then you connect that back into Google. It's a lagging metric because the data comes in later. As long as it's coming in within 90 days, so as long as you can assign some value to that lead within 90 days, offline conversion tracking works just fine, and this is actually a great setup. Again, this account, I don't think they are doing any of that. So if you don't have any of that, probably not really a good setup. The second thing I look at here is what kind of targeting do we have? So as expected with a Google Ad Rep account, everything is set to broad match. I rarely use broad match. There's always a time and a place to use it. If it's a brand new account, sometimes I like to use broad match to kind of cast a really wide net to pull in and see all the different variations of keywords. You have to always match that with really on point negative keywords to make sure you're not going too broad. But a lot of the times, as an account gets more mature, at some point pretty soon, if I am using broad match at all, to exact or phrase match keyword. As is expected, too broad with targeting here. Final thing I want to look at is conversions. Now, in many cases, conversion tracking is broken or wrong or misimplemented with accounts that we look at. It is one of the most common problems we encounter because it can be a little difficult to set up properly for inexperienced people or, first timers. So I always like to look at this. Now, this right here is weird. We see 61 results with 122 value. I've done a little digging on this account. I see why it's happening. But again, a contact form is a lead. Every lead is equal for the sake of Google. We want more leads. We don't have an inherent value to that transaction at the time of conversion. So we can't really calculate value without that other system I mentioned. So if we're looking here, we have submit lead form page load. Thank you. That's fine. But this is what's weird, conversion value. So this, first things first, I'll see what is the primary conversion actions. Do they make sense for the business? An example, this is a service business that comes to people's homes, right? It would not make sense if getting directions to an office or a store, if say he has an address like on his Google business profile or something, right? And that is an asset on the ad. People clicking get directions is not a primary conversion action because it doesn't correlate to what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to get people to fill out a contact form. That's the primary thing. So we want to check and make sure that the primary conversions align with business goals. And then we want to double check and make sure that the conversions are actually firing the way they're supposed to. So on this one, this seems to be the one that's getting all the action. I look in here and I see it's actually set up through Google Tag. Now, nothing to do in here at this stage. What I will then do after this is go into Google Tag, see how the tag and the triggers are set up, do my testing, fill out some of the forms on the website, make sure everything is working properly, and I'll test it in that way. But we still haven't identified where the value is coming from. If you recall, we have 2x for conversion value compared to the number of conversions. And if we look in here, this is set to each conversion is valued at $1, which is normal. That's okay, that's fine. But it doesn't explain where the conversion value is coming from. So if we look into value rules right here, this is a first for me in taking over a Google Rep account. I can understand maybe the reasoning behind this. If you're interested, I can explain it. There's some strategies that can be implemented that kind of hijack the way conversion value, optimizing for conversion value works. In this specific case, it's not what's happening. But we can look at this rule, and for some reason, they set it up so that a value adjustment adds $1 to every single conversion. Makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So that's where that's coming from. So we're just going to go ahead, disable. Well, we'll turn this off. This is the first three things that I check. So in summary, we're going to want to check out what is the campaign structure, what campaigns are we running, how are they each performing, what are the budgets, and then we're going to look at the targeting settings. So first, the campaign settings themselves, depending on the type of campaigns running. How are they showing to off Google networks and things like that? If so, we turn that off. I didn't check it here, but we'll also want to look at the locations the ads are showing in, make sure that aligns with the service region of the business, or whatever would make sense for the business. And then we want to look at the ad groups and keyword targeting. How are they set up? How many are in there? What's working, what's not? And then at that layer, we're going to want to basically compare and contrast the different campaigns to see how are they performing, click-through rate, conversion rate, number of conversions. If possible, we'd also look at the value of conversions or the quality of conversions or leads. So in this case, I might go into the CRM and take a look and see, which leads came from which campaigns, and is there a pattern or significant difference where, say, one campaign may be underperforming in the sense of click-through rate, conversion rate, number of conversions. However, it's producing far higher value or higher quality leads. That is something that should be considered. So we'll look at that. And then finally, we're going to go and review the conversions themselves. What is a primary conversion? How is it set up? Is it accurate? Is it not? And is there any weird stuff going on? Hopefully that helps. If you want me to audit your Google Ad account, let me know. And I will be sharing more detailed videos going through what I look for and how I set up Google Ad accounts in the future. So follow along for that.